Introduction. Friends, if you're excited to watch the mind-blowing movie The Substance 2024 in English, then make sure to like this video. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on the latest movie updates. In today's video, we're going to talk about a film that has taken the internet by storm. The Substance star. We'll explore what this movie is all about, where you can watch it, and share all the most interesting facts connected to this film. I'll be telling you everything from which OTT platform or satellite channel will feature this movie, to every detail about its technical department, music, pre-production, filming journey, post-production process, and even its budget and box office performance. Not just that, we'll also dive deep into the storyline, share a small review, and talk about how this film stands out in today's cinema world. We'll discuss the full star cast, the roles each actor plays, and how their performances contribute to the overall experience. So my friends, stick around till the end because you won't want to miss a single detail. Let's jump right into the video. Alright friends, let's dive into the wild, surreal, and absolutely unhinged world of The Substance. This is not your average storyline with a neat little beginning, middle, and end. Oh no, this one plays like a fever dream dipped in horror, body transformation, and a whole lot of "what did I just watch?" energy. The film kicks off with a setup that seems familiar at first. A woman, aging and struggling with relevance, decides to try something radical to reclaim her youth, beauty, and power. Enter The Substance, a mysterious, almost sci-fi-like experimental solution that promises to give her a newer, better version of herself. Sounds like a skincare ad gone mad, right? But that's just the bait. What unfolds is a psychological horror ride where identity, desire, and self-destruction crash into each other with no breaks. Here's where it gets juicy. The film doesn't just follow a straight road. It throws us into fractured perspectives. Sometimes we're inside the head of the original self, other times we're watching the new version from a creepy distance. You might think you know who the protagonist is, but then suddenly you're not so sure anymore. The timelines seem to ripple, blur, and sometimes overlap like a nightmare where you keep waking up into another dream. There are long, tense silences that explode into madness, and calm moments that slowly rot from the inside out. The whole narrative plays with repetition, reflection, and doubling, making it hard to tell who is real, who is in control, and whether any of this can end well. Now, let's talk turning points, because there are a few that will slap you across the face. The first big one is the actual transformation. When she takes the substance, it's not just a magical makeover, it's grotesque, terrifying, and strangely seductive. It's the point where reality starts to split. Then comes the moment when both selves begin to exist at the same time. That's when the real horror begins, because they don't just coexist, they compete. For attention, for lovers, for life itself. Every scene between the two feels like a slow dance with a knife, and the tension keeps building until you're squirming in your seat. There's also a creeping dread throughout the story, where you feel that some kind of irreversible damage is being done, not just to the characters but to reality itself. And don't expect a clean answer to who wins. The film takes its sweet, sinister time letting the boundaries dissolve. There are sequences that feel like hallucinations, dream logic moments where the camera moves like it's drunk on dread, and images that are so hauntingly bizarre you'll be thinking about them long after the credits roll. And that's the thrill of it. It's a narrative roller coaster that doesn't care if you lose track of the track. In fact, that's the whole point. Losing your grip just like the characters do as the line between enhancement and erasure disappears completely. So buckle up, because The Substance doesn't tell you a story, it drags you into a beautifully horrific mirror maze, where every reflection is twisted and every exit just leads deeper in. Let's talk about the characters in The Substance, because wow, this film doesn't just give us characters, it gives us full-blown psychological case studies wrapped in blood, vanity, and desperation. At the center of it all is the aging actress, played with jaw-dropping intensity. She's not just a person, she's a raw nerve, pulsing with bitterness, hunger, and fear. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being replaced. Fear of becoming invisible. She's lived a life under the spotlight, and now that it's dimming, she's grasping for anything that can rewind the clock. And when she finds the substance, it's like she grabs onto a rope made of barbed wire. You know it's going to cut, but she pulls anyway. This woman is layered in every way possible. On the outside, she's composed and glamorous, but the cracks are loud. Her dialogue drips with desperation even when her lips are smiling. And the beauty of her character arc is that it doesn't move in a straight line. It spirals. She devolves, evolves, mutates, sometimes literally, and her relationship with herself becomes the movie's real battleground. She's not growing into a better version of herself, she's splitting into pieces, each one hungrier than the last. Then there's the new version of her, the perfected form created by the substance. But don't think for a second this new self is a blank clone or a mindless puppet. Oh no, she's got agency, ambition, and just enough of the original's memories to know how to hit her where it hurts. Imagine watching a woman have a toxic relationship with herself. That's what this film delivers. The new self isn't content to be a supporting act. She wants the spotlight, the lovers, the legacy. She wants it all. And watching the two versions circle each other like predators is one of the juiciest parts of the film. It's psychological warfare wrapped in glitter and gore. What makes this even more unsettling is how other characters respond to them. Lovers, agents, producers, no one can quite tell what's going on, but they're all swept up in the chaos. Some see the new version and think she's just had work done, or found the right makeup. Others feel something is off but can't name it. And that only deepens the tension, because the relationships around them become warped mirrors too. Who's lying? Who's pretending? Who really knows the truth? The interactions are laced with suspicion, desire, and confusion, and every relationship becomes a test of who's really in control. Motivations in this film aren't just personal, they're primal. The original woman wants love, fame, and youth, but more than anything, she wants to matter. The new self? She wants freedom. She wants to live without the baggage of the past. And when those motivations clash, it's like watching a fire slowly eat through a mansion made of mirrors. Every scene reveals something ugly and honest, something we don't like to admit about ourselves, how far we go to be seen, to be wanted, to feel alive. So, if you're into character development that doesn't just evolve, it mutates, implodes, and regenerates like something out of a twisted fairy tale, then the substance will give you everything you could hope for. These aren't just characters. They're obsessions made flesh. Let's get into the meat of it. The Substance is a film that lives and breathes through its performances, and oh boy do the actors deliver. This isn't the kind of movie where you can just show up, say your lines, and collect your paycheck. No. This is full throttle, body and soul, leave it all on the screen, acting, and every main player goes for broke. First up, the lead actress. This is her show and she absolutely devours it. She plays both the original version of the woman and her transformed self, and somehow makes them feel like two separate people and the same person at the same time. There are scenes where she's literally acting opposite herself, and instead of feeling like a gimmick, it turns into an acting duel. She's giving haunted stares, nervous breakdowns, diva tantrums, moments of terrifying vulnerability, all while somehow keeping the character grounded in something real. You believe her pain. You believe her hunger. You believe her unraveling. And when things go fully unhinged, she doesn't just lean into it, she dives in headfirst and drags us with her. What's incredible is how much she communicates without saying a word. Her physical performance alone deserves its own award. From subtle posture changes to full-on transformations that look like a cross between ballet and horror choreography, she's constantly shifting, seductive one second, monstrous the next, and sometimes both at once. It's a masterclass in how to make body language terrifyingly expressive. And when the new version starts taking over, the performance becomes even more layered. She's colder, smoother, sharper, but with a twitch of the lip or a flash in the eye that reminds you the original is still lurking beneath the surface. And let's not forget the supporting cast. While the film is a two-woman act at its core, the people orbiting them are crucial. There's the sleazy producer who tries to play puppet master but ends up getting yanked into the chaos. He's played with just the right amount of charm and menace. He's not a cartoon villain, but you want to slap him anyway. Then there's the love interest, a man caught between the two versions, and his performance is the emotional glue in some of the most surreal scenes. He's confused, terrified, entranced, and the actor plays that delicate balance beautifully, like a man watching his world shift beneath his feet. Even the smaller roles shine. Every actor seems to understand the assignment. This movie is not just horror, it's psychological theater. They bring tension, confusion, and just the right touch of unease. You can tell that everyone involved knows they're part of something bold and bizarre, and they commit hard. No one's phoning it in. Everyone's turning the emotional volume to 11, but without tipping into campy or over the top, unless the moment needs it, in which case they go there with style. There's also something so fascinating about watching these actors play with duality. Whether it's the lead splitting herself into two lives, or the people around her trying to decide which version to trust, the performances constantly invite you to question everything. Who's the real person? Who's performing? Who's pretending to be okay? It's acting within acting, and it's delicious. So, if you love performances that grip you by the throat, make you uncomfortable in the best way, and leave you unable to look away, even when things get grotesque and weird, then The Substance has got you covered. These actors aren't just performing, they're transforming right in front of your eyes. Let's talk about the real puppet master behind the substance, the director. Because make no mistake, this film doesn't just happen. It is meticulously crafted, and you can feel the director's fingerprints all over it, shaping every moment with a wicked grin and a razor-sharp vision. From the very first frame, the tone is locked in like a heat-seeking missile, unsettling, seductive, and just slightly off in a way that keeps you leaning forward, never quite sure if you're supposed to be aroused, horrified, or both. That's not by accident. That's direction with intention. This film walks a high wire between horror and satire, beauty and grotesque, and it never stumbles. Why? Because the director has an iron grip on the mood, and they know exactly when to let it slip into madness. Now let's talk about the style, because this director isn't just telling a story, they're creating a full-on sensory hallucination. The color palette swings from sterile whites to neon pinks to oozing reds, like you're falling through different layers of someone's decaying psyche. The lighting is deliberately artificial in all the best ways, glamour on the surface, rot underneath. And the camera? The camera is its own character. It lingers when you want it to look away. It drifts like it's stalking the characters. Sometimes it just locks in and dares you to keep watching while something horrible unfolds in front of your eyes. There's a voyeuristic quality to it, as if the audience is complicit in the transformation, cheering for it even as it turns monstrous. And then there's the pacing. This movie doesn't sprint, it glides, it prowls. The director knows exactly when to slow everything down to a crawl, letting scenes simmer until the tension is thick enough to slice with a scalpel. But when the time comes to go full chaos mode, the tempo cranks up like a nightmare on fast forward. Scenes collapse into each other. Identities blur. The rhythm becomes disjointed, and it works because the director uses that disorientation to mirror the character's mental states. You don't just watch the unraveling, you feel it in your bones. That's smart, calculated pacing, and it pays off hard. Now here's where things get really fun. The director leans into body horror like it's high art, and in their hands it absolutely is. Every grotesque transformation, every uncanny mirror moment, every scene that makes you squirm or gasp, it's all choreographed with this twisted elegance. There's nothing random here. Even the gross stuff has a kind of poetic symmetry to it. It's like watching a nightmare ballet unfold, where every movement is both beautiful and wrong. The narrative structure itself has this fractured fairy tale quality, and the director plays with that too. You're never totally sure what's real, what's imagined, or what's being projected by a character's desperation. And that ambiguity? That constant feeling of being one step behind? That's the director toying with you. They want you off balance. They want you asking questions. They want you to squirm in your seat because you've become part of this strange, spiraling descent into vanity and self-destruction. And let's not forget the confidence it takes to tell a story this bold, this weird, without holding the audience's hand. There's no exposition dump, no comforting narrator to tell you what's going on. The director trusts the visuals, the tone, and the performances to carry everything, and they absolutely do. That kind of confidence behind the camera is electric. You feel it in every moment, like the whole film is daring you to keep up. So yes, the director of The Substance isn't just telling a story, they're building a fever dream brick by brick with style, precision, and a splash of madness. And if you surrender to the vision, you're in for one of the most unforgettable cinematic rides you'll ever take. Now let's get into the visual guts of The Substance, the cinematography. Because let's be honest, this movie doesn't just tell a story, it paints it, slices it, melts it, and reconstructs it with a camera that feels almost alive. Every frame in this film is soaked with mood. From the very start, the cinematography grabs you by the eyeballs and whispers, "You're not going to be comfortable," and then it delivers on that promise in the most hypnotic way. The camera doesn't just observe, it intrudes, stalks, and seduces. It knows when to get way too close, when to pull back and let you squirm in the distance, and when to tilt just slightly enough to make the world feel off-kilter without you even realizing why. Let's talk lighting, because lighting in this film isn't just illumination, it's attitude. It flickers, it glares, it bathes scenes in sickly glow or drowning shadow depending on the emotional temperature of the moment. There are times when the lighting is pristine and clinical, like you're trapped in some sterile commercial for eternal youth. And then boom, the next scene is drenched in moody red or ice-cold blue, like you've wandered into a nightmare with designer lighting. That contrast doesn't just look cool, it reflects the clash between illusion and decay that drives the whole film. Bright doesn't mean safe here. Soft lighting doesn't mean comfort. Everything is used to unnerve, and it's brilliant. Framing? Oh, the framing in The Substance is its own twisted game. Characters are often boxed into mirrors, reflections, confined spaces, visually trapped even when they think they're free. One of the most striking things the cinematographer does is use symmetry and repetition to highlight the duality of the main character. You'll see her perfectly centered in one frame, only to see that image echo moments later in a distorted reflection, flipped upside down, or reframed so slightly off-center that it creates this feeling of something being wrong, even if you can't pinpoint it. There's also a heavy use of negative space, the kind of shots where the character is pushed into a corner of the frame while the rest of the screen looms with tension. It's like the emptiness itself is pressing in on them, ready to swallow them whole. And then we have the close-ups. Oh, the close-ups. They are intimate and merciless. When the character is falling apart emotionally or physically, the camera is right there, breathing on her skin, capturing every twitch, every tremble, every horrifying detail. It's almost too much, but in the best way. You can't escape it, just like the character can't escape herself. And that's what makes the tension so unbearable and thrilling. You feel claustrophobic not because the room is small, but because the lens won't let you breathe. There are also moments that are just drop-dead gorgeous in the most bizarre way. Think slow-motion sequences dripping with stylized horror. Think dreamlike tracking shots that float through empty corridors, or high-contrast silhouettes framed against flashing neon. There are scenes that feel like fashion editorials gone feral, like beauty is being weaponized against the viewer. It's all so controlled and calculated that you know every angle was picked with surgical precision. Even when things get grotesque, and oh do they ever, the framing is so elegant it's hard to look away. The cinematography doesn't just serve the story, it enhances it, deepens it, wraps it in a visual language that screams obsession, control, decay, and desire all at once. You're not just watching the substance, you're being absorbed by it, frame by frame. Let's get into the pulse of the substance, the editing and pacing, because this is where the film really plays its psychological tricks on you. This isn't your standard A to B to C flow. The editing here is like a scalpel, precise when it needs to be and jagged when it wants you to bleed a little. At times, it's so smooth and seamless you don't even notice you've slid from one scene to another. It's like being pulled underwater without realizing you've stopped breathing. And then, without warning, the rhythm stabs forward. Hard cuts, jarring transitions, overlapping voices and fractured timelines. You're disoriented in the best possible way. You're inside the headspace of a character losing her grip, and the editing makes sure you feel it moment by moment. This film is masterful at using time as a weapon. It stretches moments of silence into agony, lets uncomfortable scenes linger just long enough for you to start squirming, and then snaps to the next beat with no warning. The early parts of the film are deliberate and seductive. You're drawn in slowly, seduced by the glamour and the promise of transformation. But once things start going wrong, and you know they will, the pacing begins to fracture. The edits become sharper, more chaotic. You'll think you're in one timeline and suddenly realize you're in a memory, a hallucination, or a distorted echo of something you saw earlier. It's trippy in a way that doesn't just dazzle, it disorients. But that's exactly the point. The editing is designed to trap you in the character's spiral. You're not just watching her fall apart, you're falling with her. There are sequences where the pacing is so tight, so relentlessly tense, you feel like you're being chased. Not by a monster but by a feeling of dread, of shame, of self-loathing. The way the film cuts between the original woman and her new self is especially brilliant. Sometimes it's subtle, a flicker of one in the other's space. Other times, the edits are sharp and confrontational, cutting back and forth like a war between identities. It's like the editor has a sixth sense for when to make you comfortable and when to rip the rug out from under you. And they do it often. Sound also plays a big role in the editing style. There are moments when the audio overlaps, when music bleeds into dialogue, when the sound from one scene continues even as the visuals change. It creates this dreamlike rhythm that messes with your perception of time. You'll be floating in one scene and suddenly snapped awake in another, unsure how you got there. But instead of feeling lost, you feel hooked. You want to chase the story just to figure out what's real. And oh, the montages. When the film decides to accelerate, it does so with flair. Quick cuts of physical transformation, flashes of glamorous illusion breaking down, rapid-fire moments that feel like a trailer for a nightmare you didn't realize you bought a ticket to. These sequences hit like adrenaline spikes and then dissolve just as fast, leaving you breathless and unsure whether what you saw actually happened. Even in its most chaotic stretches, the editing keeps its grip tight. It knows how to balance slow-burn moments with high-impact jolts. You never get bored and you never feel like the film is dragging its feet even when it's moving slowly. That's the magic of the pacing. It knows when to whisper and when to scream. It knows when to hold your hand and when to slap it away. And all of that emotional tension, that strange and seductive rhythm, comes straight from the editing room. This isn't just good editing, it's editing with a personality, and that personality is just a little bit unhinged. Let's talk about the sonic heartbeat of The Substance, because this movie doesn't just look wild, it sounds wild. The score isn't there just to accompany the action or highlight the emotions. No, the music in this film creeps under your skin and nests there. It's like a whisper in the back of your brain, constantly reminding you that something isn't right, even before the visuals tell you. From the opening credits, the soundtrack makes a statement. It's not loud, not in your face, but it's eerie, pulsing, seductive. There's this throbbing electronic undercurrent that feels like the sound of something alive growing just beneath the surface. It's stylish and synthetic, but also strangely organic, like a heartbeat mixed with machinery. That combo of beauty and unease is exactly what the film thrives on. Now here's where it gets really fun. The score shifts identities just like the main character. When the transformation is just beginning, the music is slick and elegant, full of ambient textures and haunting little motifs that repeat and evolve. It mirrors the character's initial excitement and curiosity. But as things spiral, and they do, the music gets darker, rougher, and more unpredictable. It warps and distorts itself. Melodies collapse into static. Harmony gives way to chaos. It's like the score itself is falling apart with her. There's one particular motif, this ghostly synth phrase that pops up at the most unexpected moments. Sometimes it's delicate, sometimes it's distorted into something menacing, but every time it plays, it feels like a reminder that the transformation isn't just physical. It's psychological. And the music knows it. And let's not forget silence. Oh, the silence in this movie is weaponized like a horror device. Just when you think the score is going to rise into something big, it cuts out entirely and leaves you hanging in this unbearable stillness. That kind of silence is louder than any scream. You start hearing your own breath, your own thoughts. The tension doesn't just rise, it tightens around your chest. Those quiet moments let the visuals take over, and when the sound does return, it hits like a slap. It's not afraid to let you sit in discomfort. It trusts that you'll lean in, not pull away. There are also moments where the music blends with diegetic sounds in such a seamless way that you can't tell where the score ends and the world begins. A flickering light, a buzz of static, the rhythm of breathing, all of it weaves into the music until the whole film feels like it's pulsing in sync. That's not just clever sound design, that's storytelling through sound. It makes the atmosphere feel alive, like the film is breathing along with the character's transformation. Then there's the bold choice to sometimes go big and theatrical, especially in moments where the character is fully embracing her new self. These moments explode with glam pop flair, ironic and dramatic at the same time, like the score is both celebrating and mocking her metamorphosis. It's twisted fun like a fashion show hosted in hell. It turns horror into spectacle without losing the dread. That tonal whiplash? Totally intentional. And it works. The soundtrack doesn't just accompany the story, it tells the story. It grows, mutates, disappears, reappears. It seduces and then shatters. It becomes the voice of the film's duality, the beauty and the rot, the fantasy and the freak show. So by the time you leave the theater, you don't just remember what you saw, you're humming it, haunted by those motifs that refuse to let go. The music doesn't just enhance the substance. It is the substance. Alright, let's dive into the deliciously twisted core of The Substance. Its themes and messages, because this film is absolutely oozing with big ideas dressed up in body horror and glitter. At first glance, it might look like a tale of transformation gone wrong, but oh, it's so much more than that. This movie is a scathing, stylish, and surreal takedown of our obsession with youth, beauty, and the impossible standards that society, and especially the entertainment industry, forces on women. It's not just commentary, it's a full-blown scream wrapped in latex and mascara. It grabs the idea of reinvention and rips it wide open, exposing the guts underneath. One of the juiciest themes here is the horror of aging. Not the gentle kind with gray hair and warm sweaters. No, this is the societal panic attack kind. The kind that whispers you're invisible after 40, that your body is a ticking time bomb of irrelevance. The film takes that fear and physicalizes it. It doesn't just suggest the pressure women feel, it makes it literal. It says, here's a serum that will make you young again, but what will it cost? And then it answers that question with a body count and a mirror full of regret. The obsession with being seen, being wanted, being perfect. It's all there, dripping off every frame like toxic sweat. But it's not just about vanity. Oh no. It's also about identity. Who are you when you change yourself? Are you still you, or are you something entirely different? The film plays with the concept of duality like a psychological chess game. There's the real self, the projected self, the public image, the inner hunger. The substance doesn't just split the character physically, it fractures her identity. And watching that unravel is equal parts fascinating and terrifying. The movie forces the audience to ask, if we could reinvent ourselves, erase our flaws, be adored again, would we? And if we did, could we live with what we become? And then there's the theme of control. Who gets to own a body? Is it the person inside it? The media? The audience? The studio executives? The film absolutely skewers the power dynamics that control women's appearances. The character thinks she's taking control by using the substance, but slowly, terrifyingly, we realize she's losing it. Her body doesn't obey her. Her identity starts slipping. And that slow loss of autonomy is scarier than any monster. The real terror here isn't transformation. It's the realization that the system wants you to change and then punishes you for it. There's also a brilliant thread of satire running through the whole thing. The film winks at old Hollywood glamour even as it exposes its rotting underbelly. It toys with the aesthetics of beauty commercials, workout tapes, self-help promises, then rips them to shreds with claws and blood. It's not just scary. It's smart. It's angry. It's darkly hilarious in that way where you're laughing 1 second and gasping the next. The message isn't spoon-fed, it's smeared on the walls in lipstick and tears. And let's not forget the deeper philosophical itch it scratches. The idea that desire, in its rawest form, can be monstrous. Not just sexual desire but the desire to be loved, to be validated, to feel important. The film doesn't say, don't want these things. It asks, what happens when you want them so badly, you dissolve who you are to get them? That's not just horror, that's existential dread with glitter on top. So yeah, The Substance isn't just about one woman's nightmarish makeover. It's about all of us. It's about the lies we tell ourselves, the masks we wear, and the things we're willing to destroy to feel whole. It's grotesque, it's glamorous, it's gloriously unhinged, and every thematic thread hits like a gut punch and heals. Let's get into the guts and glam of The Substance's visual effects, because wow, this film doesn't hold back. It's a full-on sensory buffet of oozing transformation, flesh-stretching chaos, and unsettling beauty, all delivered through a mix of jaw-dropping practical effects and carefully deployed CGI. And the best part? The effects don't just exist to shock you, though trust me they absolutely will. They actually serve the story and character arc in a way that feels deeply intentional and gloriously grotesque. First up, the practical effects deserve a standing ovation. These are not your clean, sanitized Hollywood touch-ups. These are the kind of effects that make you squirm, blink twice, and question whether you just saw skin peel off or reality crumble. You can feel the texture, whether it's the slick, glistening sheen of newly formed flesh or the crumbling decay of a body that's been pushed too far. There's a tactility to it that makes everything feel real, even when it's completely insane. The makeup, the prosthetics, the way limbs distort and eyes glaze, it's all so disturbingly authentic that you forget for a moment that it's movie magic. It's grotesque in the best possible way, like Cronenberg's Legacy got a high-fashion makeover. And then there's the digital side. Here's the genius. The CGI is not trying to replace the practical effects. It's there to amplify them. Instead of doing all the heavy lifting, it works as a kind of surreal enhancement, a shimmer on the edge of reality, a twitch in the corner of your vision, a seamless extension of what's already physically present on set. The transitions between human and inhuman are smooth but disturbing, like watching a face melt and reassemble in one long horrifying blink. The digital work allows for transformations that are just beyond what's possible with makeup alone, but it never feels like it's showing off. It's strategic, subtle, and sometimes sneakily beautiful in a very disturbing way. What's really impressive is how these effects are embedded into the world of the film. They don't feel tacked on or gratuitous. Instead, they blend right into the hyper-stylized, almost hallucinatory tone of the movie. There's no moment where you're pulled out of the story because something looks too CGI. That's because the whole visual language of The Substance is heightened, it's already surreal, already exaggerated, so when something does explode or morph or ooze into something else, it fits. The world wants to melt. The style invites the grotesque. It's not a glitch in the illusion, it is the illusion. And let's talk about how these effects tie into theme. Every bulging vein, every cracked nail, every moment of glossy perfection giving way to monstrous decay is telling a story about beauty, desire, and destruction. This isn't just horror for the sake of horror, it's horror as metaphor. The visual effects are the physical manifestation of the character's psychological descent. The more she tries to control her body, the more violently it rebels. The more she tries to perfect herself, the more she splinters. The film doesn't just show you transformation, it makes you feel it cell by cell. Also worth noting, the lighting and cinematography work hand in hand with the effects. You get this slick interplay between glossy close-ups and shadowy horror, which helps hide the seams when it needs to and spotlight the most terrifying details when it wants you to suffer. The transitions between practical and digital are often so seamless, you'd need to slow the film down frame by frame just to figure out where one ends and the other begins. So whether it's a subtle skin shimmer, a full-blown grotesque reveal, or a hallucinatory meltdown of identity and form, the visual effects in The Substance don't just support the story, they are the story. You're not just watching a transformation. You're witnessing a body go to war with itself. And thanks to the mind-melting mix of practical and digital wizardry, it's a war you won't be able to look away from, no matter how badly you want to. Let's open the velvet curtain and take a deep, unsettling walk through the set design and locations of The Substance, because this movie doesn't just build a world, it builds a feeling. And not the kind of feeling that gently tucks you in. No, this world is seductive, disorienting, and just a little bit sick. From the moment the film starts, every room, every piece of furniture, every glowing mirror feels like it's part of the character's internal chaos, reflecting her descent in the most stylishly horrifying way possible. The main character's apartment is a character in itself. At first, it feels like the kind of minimalist glamour you'd find in a lifestyle magazine. Clean lines, muted tones, tasteful lighting. But then, slowly it starts to feel off. The lighting gets harsher. The walls seem to close in. The shadows linger too long. It becomes a funhouse version of itself, like the apartment is watching her, judging her, absorbing her paranoia. It's not just a backdrop, it's a mood. You can practically feel the air getting thicker as she unravels. The more she changes, the more sterile and artificial the environment feels, like her world is being scrubbed clean of anything real. And then there's the laboratory-like setting where the titular substance is introduced. What a nightmare of aesthetic horror. Picture a space that's part clinic, part cult lair, with everything drenched in soft white light and dripping with faux serenity. You know those terrifyingly calm places that try to sell you beauty and wellness? That's this, but with a sinister undercurrent. The props here are genius. Sleek syringes, spotless countertops, abstract art that means nothing but feels expensive. It's like the wellness industry collided with a horror movie and decided to look good while doing it. It's sterile, stylish, and screams danger beneath its clean surface. The more she descends into her transformation, the more fragmented the locations become. We shift into places that are dreamlike, surreal, and sometimes downright nightmarish. Mirror rooms that reflect her 1,000 times, each reflection more distorted than the last. Softly lit corridors that feel endless. Hidden rooms filled with eerie lighting, flickering televisions, or static-filled beauty ads. These aren't just weird for weird's sake. They mimic the inner fracturing of the protagonist. The production design makes sure you're never quite sure where you are or what's real. It's cinematic gaslighting at its finest. One standout set is the television studio. This place is a hypersynthetic monster, a glossy, oversaturated temple to performance and image. Think cold neon, sharp corners, makeup mirrors that feel like interrogation lamps, and a general atmosphere of permanent surveillance. It's a place built to highlight perfection and punish imperfection. As the protagonist tries to maintain control of her new self, the setting becomes more garish and aggressive, like the walls themselves are mocking her. The set is telling her she's not enough, not real, not right, and you believe it because the environment says it before the characters even open their mouths. Even the more mundane locations, hallways, bathrooms, elevators, are treated like psychological spaces. A bathroom scene isn't just a bathroom scene when the tiles are so white they burn your eyes and the mirror seems like it's waiting to betray you. Elevators feel like pressure cookers. Hallways stretch too long. The architecture itself warps with the character's sense of self, and you can feel the production designer having an absolute blast turning ordinary spaces into something terrifyingly theatrical. The props, too, are never random. The way a tube of cream is placed. The clinical precision of a beauty regimen. The grotesque elegance of transformation tools. Even the mundane becomes menacing when framed correctly, and The Substance knows exactly how to do it. This is set design that whispers to you, something isn't right, before anything even happens. It's horror built from interiors, dread born from design. This is a film where the world isn't just telling the story, it's part of the breakdown. It's the inner psyche turned inside out. The sets don't just contain the horror, they are the horror. A glossy nightmare. A beautiful prison. A mirror maze you can't escape. Alright, buckle up because the dialogue in The Substance isn't just there to fill the silence. It's slicing through the scenes like a scalpel coated in perfume. This script is a wicked cocktail of sharp wit, psychological mind games, and haunting introspection, with every line soaked in the same deliciously unsettling energy as the visuals. It doesn't spoon-feed the audience or go overboard with exposition. Instead, it lets the characters breathe, fumble, seduce, and unravel through dialogue that's often just as layered and volatile as the plot itself. Let's start with the tone. The dialogue has this ice-cold confidence to it, especially in the way the protagonist speaks early on. She's in control, or at least she thinks she is. Her lines are poised, rehearsed, like someone who's been in front of the camera and knows how to sell a lie. There's a calculated elegance in how she chooses her words. But what's fascinating is how that confidence starts to slip. As the transformation sets in and her sense of self starts to fracture, the dialogue becomes jagged, defensive, erratic. There's a clear, deliberate arc in how she speaks, from sleek to scrambled, and it mirrors the disintegration of her identity in real time. And then there are the moments of pure, venom-laced brilliance. You know, the kind, lines that cut deep, pause the scene for half a second and make you go, "Oh, that's gonna live rent-free in my head." These aren't grand monologues or overly written declarations. They're subtle, biting, and loaded with double meaning. Think cold compliments that sound sweet but sting underneath. Offhand remarks about aging that land like bombs. A single "you look different" hits harder than any scream because of how it's said and when. The script is a masterclass in weaponizing the mundane. It also knows when to get surreal. There are lines that float out of nowhere, poetic and slightly off-kilter, like the character is talking to herself, or to someone that doesn't even exist. These moments are eerie and beautiful and unsettling all at once, especially when they echo throughout the film like a haunting refrain. A phrase muttered early on might come back later, twisted and corrupted, like it's evolved with the character's descent. The repetition gives the dialogue this dreamlike, spiraling quality that makes the story feel more like a fever than a narrative. Let's not ignore the supporting characters either. They're not just background noise, they're agents of pressure, judgment, and manipulation, and their dialogue reflects that. A wellness guru coos encouragement that somehow sounds like a threat. A studio executive offers praise that drips with dismissal. Friends, lovers, handlers, every line they speak is wrapped in subtext, layered with control and condescension. The script never wastes a word. It knows when to be slick, when to be brutal, and when to just shut up and let the silence do the talking. There are even a few moments of dark humor that sneak in, biting, clever, and perfectly timed. It's not the laugh-out-loud kind. It's the kind that makes you smirk while also feeling a little sick. Think lines that highlight the absurdity of beauty culture or the grotesque lengths people will go to maintain relevance. The wit in the script isn't just entertainment, it's a scalpel carving into the film's themes. Overall, the dialogue in The Substance works on multiple levels. On the surface as cool, stylish chatter, just below that as a mirror of psychological disintegration, and deep down as a vessel for everything the film wants to say about power, image, identity, and decay. It's not trying to be flashy. It's trying to get under your skin, and by the end it absolutely succeeds. Let's talk about genre, because The Substance isn't just dipping its toes into horror, it's doing a full swan dive into the deep end, but with a mirror in one hand and a scalpel in the other. This isn't your standard body horror flick where a character mutates and we all squirm for 90 minutes. No, this film knows the genre rules, then tosses them aside like last season's skincare line and writes its own playbook. It's horror, yes, but not the kind that simply jumps out at you. It's the kind that creeps in through the cracks in your confidence, whispers in the mirror, and tells you your reflection isn't quite right. On the surface, The Substance might sound like it's following familiar body horror beats. Woman uses mysterious substance, things go very wrong, cue the flesh-melting madness, but that's just the entry point. What it actually does is take the genre's traditional themes of transformation and corruption and wrap them in a satirical, psychological, and disturbingly glamorous new shell. You don't just get a monster, you get a manifesto. And it's soaked in commentary about beauty, identity, and the cult of youth. That's not subverting the genre, it's detonating it with glitter-coated dynamite. This movie doesn't just rely on the old gross-out tricks, although it definitely delivers some skin-crawling visuals that'll make you question everything you've ever applied to your face. It digs deeper. It makes you feel the horror, not just see it. The suspense here doesn't come from a masked killer in the shadows. It comes from the pressure to be perfect. From the slow, spiraling dread of not recognizing yourself anymore. From the fear that even your own body has turned against you. It's psychological terror wrapped in silk and neon. And here's the kicker, it's weirdly funny. Not in a laugh track kind of way, but in that deeply uncomfortable, should I be laughing at this kind of way. The film leans into the absurdity of self-optimization culture and weaponizes it. The scenes where characters calmly discuss horrifying beauty rituals like they're ordering brunch? That's horror and satire holding hands and skipping straight into your subconscious. The script knows how ridiculous the pursuit of physical perfection can be, and it turns that ridiculousness into something razor-sharp and deadly. What's also brilliant is how the film balances its tones. One moment it's hypnotic and beautiful, all smooth lighting and sensual music, and the next it's peeling back layers, literally and figuratively, to reveal something raw and terrifying underneath. It doesn't lean too hard on gore or jump scares. Instead, it creates tension through atmosphere, dialogue, and the constant threat of change. The horror is both internal and external, and the genre elements are used to explore deeper questions rather than just deliver a thrill. Even the way it builds its world feels like a genre evolution. It's clinical, polished, and eerily sterile, which makes the intrusion of horror feel all the more violating. This isn't set in a haunted house or a cabin in the woods. It's set in the glossy, hyper-controlled world of beauty and image, where horror shouldn't belong, but absolutely thrives. That contrast between the sleek aesthetic and the grotesque body horror is exactly what makes the genre elements feel so fresh. And let's not ignore the feminist undercurrent pulsing through every frame. Horror has always flirted with themes of female identity, transformation, and control, but the substance grabs those ideas by the throat and drags them into the light. The horror here is deeply gendered, but in a way that's bold, unafraid, and emotionally resonant. It's not just about what happens to the body, it's about why and who benefits and what it costs. So while the substance absolutely respects the horror genre, it doesn't play by the old rules. It reinvents them with elegance and bite, turning genre conventions into mirrors, and trust me, not the flattering kind. It's a horror film that knows exactly what it is and dares you to look deeper. Just don't expect to walk away the same. Now this is where the substance really bears its teeth, not just as a horror film but as a twisted cultural mirror. This movie doesn't just dabble in social commentary, it bathes in it, peels back the layers, and asks you to take a good hard look at the gory truth behind the glossy surface of modern life. It tackles beauty culture, aging, gender expectations, and the obsession with image so directly that it almost feels dangerous, like you're watching a manifesto disguised as a fever dream. And yet, somehow, it all feels natural, like this is the only way the story could be told. At the core, this film is a razor-sharp commentary on how society treats women, particularly aging women, with the kind of performative empathy that quickly turns to cruelty once someone slips out of the ideal image. The protagonist isn't just afraid of losing her youth, she's terrified of becoming invisible. That's the true horror lurking behind every frame. It's not just the body horror that shocks you, it's the way the world around her reacts to even the tiniest crack in her appearance. The film is brilliant at showing how deeply this fear is rooted in media, marketing, and everyday interactions. A subtle wrinkle becomes a warning sign. A missed appointment is a professional death sentence. Every glance from others becomes a silent judgment. And it's not exaggerated, it's just magnified. But the genius of the film is how it never lectures you. The commentary is baked into the very fabric of the story. When the character turns to the substance, she's not doing it out of vanity. She's doing it because the system around her has made her feel like there's no other option. She's not chasing youth, she's trying to survive. That desperation, that emotional manipulation, is where the film draws blood. And it doesn't just blame her. It blames the machine, the industry, the culture, the viewers. It also dives headfirst into the commodification of identity. Who gets to own your image? What happens when your body becomes a product? When transformation is marketed as empowerment but is actually submission dressed in sleek packaging. There's a quiet fury in how the film presents these questions, especially through the twisted irony of the transformation process. It's sold as a solution, a cure, a gift. But it's a trap, and the moment you realize it, it's too late. The commentary doesn't feel forced because it's not just tied to the plot, it is the plot. Every decision, every character interaction, is infused with this cultural tension. And let's not forget the way the film handles beauty as a form of control. The characters who uphold the system, those offering praise, opportunities, or validation, are never overt villains. They're calm, smiling, helpful. They just want what's best for you. And that's the point. The pressure doesn't come with a slap. It comes with a soft voice and a smile, with contracts and expectations, with well-lit studios and soothing voices that tell you you're almost enough. It's the kind of horror that's so familiar it slips under your skin before you even notice it's there. The film doesn't shy away from the grotesque either. It leans into the physical consequences of these societal pressures, using body horror not just for shock value, but as a metaphor for what it feels like to be constantly judged, reshaped, devalued. The more the protagonist changes, the more alien she becomes to herself, until she's nothing but a vessel for other people's approval. It's heartbreaking. And horrifying. And so real. There's also an undercurrent of commentary on capitalism and consumerism. The substance is a product after all. Something to be bought, sold, branded. The idea that transformation is just another commodity, packaged like skincare, promoted like a miracle, sold like salvation, is devastatingly sharp. It's not just about what people want. It's about what they're told they should want. What they're told they need to stay relevant. Stay desirable. Stay seen. So yes, the substance has something to say. A lot actually. But it never pauses the story to deliver a lecture. Instead, it lets the horror speak. It lets the mirror reflect. And what you see in that mirror might just make you squirm, not because it's unfamiliar but because it's all too recognizable. Let's talk about what it actually feels like to watch The Substance. Because this isn't just a movie you sit through, it's an experience that climbs under your skin, takes a seat, and refuses to leave. From the opening scene, you can feel the emotional temperature rising. There's a simmering tension in the air, a mix of curiosity and dread, like you've just entered a place you're not supposed to be but can't look away from. It doesn't take long before you realize this film is designed to get reactions, big, uncomfortable, visceral reactions, and it does it with a devilish grin. First of all, the shock factor is off the charts, but not in a cheap, jump-scare kind of way. It hits you with moments that are so bold, so visually or emotionally disturbing, that you physically react. Your jaw drops, your body clenches, your mind screams, nope, even as your eyes refuse to look away. There are scenes so unforgettable that they practically stamp themselves on your brain. Whether it's a grotesque metamorphosis, a painfully awkward interaction, or a moment of quiet despair that punches you in the heart, the film knows exactly how to hit your emotional pressure points, and it does it with precision. But what's even more impressive is how much the film invites conversation. As soon as the credits roll, you're not just left with a final image, you're left with 1,000 questions swirling in your head. What did that scene mean? Why did she make that choice? Was that a metaphor or a memory? It doesn't hand you easy answers, and that's the magic. It demands discussion. People leave the theater or pause the stream and immediately start unpacking it, arguing, theorizing, dissecting. It's a social film, the kind that sparks group chats and YouTube essays and whispered conversations that start with, "Wait, did you notice?" And then there's the weird, unexpected humor. Yes, you will probably laugh at some point, not because it's a comedy but because it throws in these perfectly timed moments of satirical brilliance. The absurdity of some of the wellness messaging, the clinical way horror is delivered with a smile, the deadpan delivery of something horrifying, it hits you in this darkly funny way that feels totally earned. You laugh, but it's a laugh that comes with a nervous edge, like you're not entirely sure if it's okay to laugh but you do it anyway. Emotionally, the film knows how to twist the knife. It taps into fear, of course, but also sadness, shame, vanity, longing, and loneliness. It doesn't just want to scare you. It wants you to feel the fear that comes with becoming obsolete, to ache for the version of yourself you used to be, to cringe at the masks we all wear in public. You find yourself unexpectedly connecting with a character who's unraveling before your eyes, and even though what's happening is wild and surreal, it hits like a punch of cold reality. You may not relate to the exact situation, but the emotions? Those are universal. And the rewatchability? Through the roof. This is one of those rare films where the second viewing is almost more rewarding than the first. You notice details you missed, foreshadowing that was hidden in plain sight, lines that take on new meaning after you know the full story. There's a richness to how it's constructed that makes it perfect for obsessing over, pausing, rewinding, zooming in on that one frame that made you go, "Wait, what was that?" The layers are built to be peeled back slowly, and that's exactly what audiences love to do. Most importantly, the substance lingers. It doesn't end when the film ends. It stays with you, haunts you in the mirror, creeps into your thoughts when you're putting on lotion or staring at a filtered photo. It dares you to confront things you usually avoid. And it does it not by preaching or scaring you for fun, but by reflecting a version of ourselves we pretend isn't there. And that, more than anything, is what keeps people talking, watching, and feeling long after the credits roll. If you're walking into The Substance thinking you've seen this kind of horror before, body horror, feminist horror, satirical sci-fi, you are in for a rude, glorious awakening. Because while it might brush shoulders with a few familiar names, this film doesn't just hold its own. It slips a scalpel in its sleeve and quietly carves out a space all its own. Let's be honest, comparisons are inevitable. You might feel the cold sting of Black Swan in the way it unravels a woman's identity under societal pressure. You might get flashes of Titani or Raw with the way it embraces the grotesque transformation of the body. And sure, There's a little requiem for a dream energy in how it tracks obsession, spiraling self-destruction, and the cost of perfection. But the substance takes those influences, chews them up, and spits out something darker, glossier, and more deeply satirical. When stacked next to other body horror legends, think Cronenberg's The Fly or Videodrome, you can clearly see that the substance is paying homage. It loves the genre's history. It respects the goo, the guts, the internal turned external. But it adds something those earlier films didn't: a sharp, unapologetic commentary on modern beauty standards and gender politics. This isn't just about the horror of transformation. It's about the why behind that transformation. It's about control, visibility, desirability, and the terrifying question of who we are when our reflection starts fighting back. The gore is still there, but now it's loaded with meaning, and a little mascara. In terms of feminist horror, you might find it whispering alongside Teeth or Jennifer's Body, those films that took control of female pain and turned it into power. But the substance goes even further. It's not just flipping the script. It's setting the whole script on fire, then airbrushing the ashes. Where Teeth made you cheer and Jennifer's Body gave you campy revenge, the substance delivers a slow, sickening descent into the cost of trying to stay desirable in a world that treats women like fruit with a short shelf life. Even when you zoom in on the director's own filmography, Coralie Fargeet of Revenge fame, there's a noticeable evolution. Revenge was bold, bloody, and unrelenting, yes, but it still leaned into genre tropes, albeit flipped. The substance, on the other hand, feels like she's gone deeper into the rabbit hole. It's more experimental, more psychological. Less about physical vengeance and more about internalized destruction disguised as empowerment. It's like Revenge picked up a beauty magazine, saw what was being sold to women, and said, "Oh, you want horror? Let's talk horror." And let's not forget the visual parallels. While a lot of horror films, especially body horror, go for a dark, gritty palette, the substance dares to make its nightmare pretty. It's all cool tones, soft lighting, sterile rooms, and sleek branding until suddenly it's not. That contrast, between the polished exterior and the fleshy chaos beneath, is where it outpaces many of its peers. It uses beauty as a weapon, then turns it on the audience. You came here for horror, and the horror is how much you relate to the desire to be beautiful. It also stands apart from recent genre-bending horror like Possessor or Men, which play more with abstraction or symbolism. The substance stays emotionally anchored. You may not understand every choice right away, but you feel them. It's surreal but never confusing. Experimental but never alienating. It has that rare ability to be both high concept and immediately visceral. You don't need to decode a 40-minute metaphor about the human condition to be affected. You're already feeling it in your bones. So if you're trying to figure out where the substance fits in, the answer is, it doesn't. It brushes up against its cinematic cousins, gives a knowing wink, and then struts off into uncharted territory in 6-inch heels with blood on the soles. It's not here to play the same game. It's here to rewrite the rules and look terrifyingly fabulous while doing it. Now we're diving into the real juicy stuff, because the substance isn't just a film, it's a Rorschach test dipped in lipstick and set on fire. Beneath every frame of body horror and beauty obsession is a swirling soup of symbolism that's screaming to be unpacked. Let's start with the obvious and spiral straight into the deliciously abstract. The titular substance isn't just some sci-fi goo or fancy plot device. It's an idea, a promise, a curse wrapped in a pretty bow. It's the manifestation of the toxic perfection culture women are drowning in. You want to be younger, better, more you? Just take a dose. But the moment you consume it, you realize the horrifying truth. It doesn't make you more real, it makes you more marketable. The product is a performance and your original self? Disposable. That's the central metaphor, glowing neon and pulsing with existential dread. Then there's the whole mirror motif, which is everywhere in this film. Mirrors aren't just mirrors, they're judgmental little portals to the truth you've been trying to avoid. Every time a character looks into one, something shifts. There's a slow unraveling. A twitch. A hint that maybe the reflection knows more than the person staring back. The duality between who you are and who you want to be becomes literal, especially when the new version of the self begins to take over in more ways than one. The mirror doesn't just reflect, it accuses. And once that split begins, it's impossible to unsee. The visual metaphor of duplicity and identity fragmentation runs so deep it practically gets its own character arc. Let's not skip the sterile, clinical environments either. These labs, spas, and minimalist spaces look calm and clean, but they're loaded with menace. Everything about the design screams control. There are no distractions. No chaos. Just a space where transformation can be measured, observed, perfected. That visual minimalism becomes its own metaphor, a world where emotion, messiness, and imperfection are scrubbed away. It's the illusion of calm that hides the violence of self-erasure. And oh, the use of color. It's not just aesthetic, it's strategic warfare. There's a calculated contrast between cold blues and soft pastels with sudden bursts of visceral red or oozing black. That candy-coated palette lulls you into a sense of safety, only to rip the rug out with something grotesque crawling under the surface. The pinks and creams become complicit in the horror. They're the weaponized femininity of corporate wellness culture. Inviting, soothing, and totally lethal. Even the repeated shots of physical decay have layers. This isn't just gross-out cinema for the sake of shock. The way the skin peels, the body morphs, the self crumbles, it's a metaphor for emotional breakdown. For the price of trying to meet impossible standards. Every wrinkle, blister, or crack is a visual scream of, "You're running out of time." The film doesn't just show body horror, it explains it through symbolism without ever needing to say a word. One of the most brilliant metaphors might be in how the perfect version of the protagonist isn't a heroic upgrade, it's a monster. Sleek, seductive, and utterly hollow. It walks, talks, and flirts like a fantasy, but you can feel the emptiness. That's not empowerment, it's puppetry. The metaphor here is so rich it practically spoons itself into your mouth. The ideal version of yourself sold by the beauty industry isn't a savior. It's a threat. It doesn't free you. It replaces you. Even silence plays a symbolic role. There are stretches of the film where sound drops out or becomes eerily muted, and those moments are loaded. It's the absence of voice, of identity, of resistance. When characters stop speaking, it's not peace, it's suppression. It's the film's way of showing how easy it is to disappear beneath the surface when you're told being quiet and beautiful is better than being loud and flawed. So yes, the substance is soaked in gore and sci-fi horror, but every moment is laced with meaning. Every drip, twitch, and scream is doing double duty, terrifying you on one level and whispering secrets about society, identity, and self-worth on another. This is a film made for decoding. It practically dares you to dig deeper. And once you start seeing the metaphors, you can't unsee them. The whole thing becomes a mirror, and the reflection might just make you squirm. The substance doesn't belong to a franchise, sequel chain, or expanded universe, but let's not pretend it dropped into the cinematic world without context. Oh no, it didn't crawl out of a lab vat fully formed. It arrives like a high-gloss fever dream with decades of horror, feminism, and body commentary dripping from its pores. To understand where this film sits, you've got to trace its DNA back through some pretty wild cinematic evolution. Think of it as the rebellious great-grandchild of classic body horror, the kind David Cronenberg was stitching together in the 80s when he turned physical decay into psychological trauma. But while Cronenberg's The Fly focused on transformation as tragic science gone wrong, the substance flips the narrative on its manicured head. Here, transformation isn't an accident. It's an aspiration, a choice, a product you're seduced into buying with a glossy brochure and promises of relevance. And that's where the modern context kicks in. The substance is drenched in 21st century anxiety. It's the cinematic child of Instagram filters, influencer culture, and anti-aging obsession. If this film had a birth year, it'd be the day someone first invented face-smoothing apps. It's impossible to watch it without thinking of how social media has turned identity into a performance, and the body into a battlefield. So, in terms of cultural and historical relevance, this film is very much of its time, and very much about what this time does to people, especially women who are told their value depreciates the second they age out of a certain look. And if you want to get even juicier, it's a direct response to Hollywood's long-standing beauty machine. Set against the backdrop of entertainment, aging actresses, and the obsession with youth, the substance taps into a rich history of how the industry discards women the moment they're no longer marketable. But instead of writing an op-ed or making a quiet indie drama about it, the filmmakers chose to slather that rage in latex, prosthetics, and neon horror. It's a protest film disguised as a scream fest. A feminist manifesto wrapped in body horror chic. And when you watch it in the context of recent movements, #MeToo, ageism in casting, the reappraisal of how women are portrayed in media, it becomes even more loaded. This film isn't standing on the shoulders of past horror, it's throwing glitter on them and shouting, this is what the genre has been building to. So no, it's not part of a franchise in the traditional sense. But the substance feels like a critical chapter in a much larger narrative, the ongoing evolution of horror as a tool for social commentary. It's plugged directly into the bloodstream of current cultural discourse. You can practically hear it whispering to other films in the genre across time, I see what you did there with the metaphor. Now watch me take it further. In that way, it doesn't need a sequel or a prequel. Its lineage is written in every frame of horror history before it, and its legacy is being carved out with every discussion that follows. Let's talk about money, the messy, glittery, blood-splattered elephant in the room. The Substance isn't some mega blockbuster with a superhero cape budget and a mountain of merchandising deals. It's not here to sell lunchboxes. But oh boy, does it squeeze every cent out of its sleek, surreal production. The film's budget was reportedly modest by Hollywood standards, hovering somewhere in the indie to mid-range zone. Not shoestring, but definitely not Marvel money. And you can see exactly where that budget went. Into luscious set design, grotesquely beautiful prosthetics, bold lighting schemes, and performances that chew through the screen like they're starving. It's not about big explosions or endless CGI. It's about precision, tone, and surgical attention to detail. Every frame looks like it was designed, not just shot. You can tell the filmmakers had a very specific vision, and they stretched the budget like it was made of cinematic elastic. No dollar wasted, just repurposed into nightmare fuel. Now, when it comes to box office performance, here's where things get spicy. The Substance wasn't released as a traditional four-quadrant popcorn flick. This wasn't meant to rake in billions globally in its opening weekend. This film came out swinging at a specific crowd: festival goers, art house horror fans, people who get excited when they hear the phrase body horror. And within that circle, it caused a stir. It got buzz. It got people talking, and maybe screaming a little. That kind of energy can't be measured only by opening weekend receipts. It's the kind of film that thrives on word of mouth, midnight screenings, think pieces, and a growing cult following. Did it top the charts? Probably not. But was it a quiet flop? Absolutely not. This is the kind of movie that lingers, slowly building its reputation like a rumor whispered in the back of a cinema. Marketing played a fascinating role here. The campaign wasn't about flashy trailers or toy tie-ins. It leaned hard into mystery and provocation. Posters that oozed with style, teaser clips that gave nothing away but left your skin crawling, and the kind of buzz that comes from festival walkouts and standing ovations in the same breath. It didn't try to appeal to everyone. It chose its audience carefully, and in doing so, turned itself into an event. Whether you loved it or couldn't handle it, The Substance was hard to ignore. An audience reception? A glorious, chaotic split. Some hailed it as a feminist horror masterpiece. Others recoiled from its intensity like they just touched a hot stove. But either way, that kind of passionate reaction is marketing gold. Because while one person's discomfort might keep them away, another's curiosity gets piqued. What could be that disturbing? Cue ticket sales. So in the end, The Substance might not have broken every record or bought the studio a new yacht, but it did exactly what it set out to do. It made its presence known. It turned a bold vision into something people can't stop dissecting. And in today's crowded cinematic landscape, that kind of impact is worth more than 100 safe, forgettable hits. So you're ready to step into the glitter-soaked nightmare that is The Substance, and you're wondering, where do you actually get your eyeballs on this beautifully deranged piece of cinema? Well, depending on when you're reading this, your options might vary, but let's talk about how and where to fully immerse yourself in this sensory fever dream. First off, if it's still in theaters, that is absolutely the way to go. Not just any theater. Ideally one that takes sound seriously, has a huge screen, and draws a crowd that's into edgy, mind-bending cinema. This isn't a film you casually watch with popcorn and check your phone halfway through. This is an experience that wraps around you, grips you by the nerves, and drags you into a world of perfection gone wrong. The darkness of a theater amplifies everything. The glistening visuals, the silence that turns to dread, and the horrifyingly beautiful details you'd miss on a small screen. Plus, watching with an audience? Pure magic. You'll hear gasps, nervous laughter, maybe even some walkouts. And that just makes it better. If it's made the jump to streaming or digital rental, you'll likely find it on platforms that cater to bold, indie, or prestige horror. Think the usual suspects that scoop up festival darlings and cult hits. Whether it's a premium rental or part of a genre-specific streaming service, the key is this: do not casually throw it on while folding laundry. Dim the lights, wear headphones if you have to, and lock in. This film is about atmosphere, discomfort, and detail, and it rewards full attention. On a big screen or a high-def setup at home, it delivers. On a phone screen while multitasking? That's a tragedy. So if it's in theaters, run, don't walk. If it's on digital, rent it, stream it, just give it the respect it demands. Whether you're watching it alone in a pitch-black room or with a group of friends daring each other to get through it, the best way to experience The Substance is fully, deeply, and maybe a little bit afraid. Because once it starts, you're not just watching, it's watching you.